The rookies were trash. We knew they were trash. Did they turn out to be trash? Yes. Sort of. Maybe. Let's review the 24-25 NBA rookie class. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I am on Team Kelly Steele. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. Check out LockedOnDaily.com. There are free newsletters there. Your favorite team. All the best info, 5 days a week, free into your inbox. And if you sign up before the end of April, you will get a chance to win one of 3 gift cards. A Best Buy gift card, a Game Time gift card, or a Fanatics gift card we are giving out to sign up for the free newsletters. We are here to talk about rookies. And while that was marginally hyperbolic for me at the start of the show, talking about how these rookies are trash, they were. It was bad. Now, of course, everything is nuanced. Are these good basketball players? Yes. Are there going to be numerous rotation players out of this draft? Yes. Are there going to be any stars out of this draft? Almost probably not. But that is almost 100% in line with how we projected this class out. Also, when we projected this class out for their rookie value, this is the first time that I can remember ever doing this on this show, where we never had a single player projected top 120 in category leagues, and nobody finished top 120. We normally get between 3 to 6 players who end up in that area, and we projected around that mark, and we were spot on, absolutely bang on in terms of evaluating how that works. And I know there's going to be pushback, and there was plenty of pushback before the season, in draft season, talking about how bad this group was. And it's all relative. And this next draft is going to be much better. Where it all plays out and where players end up on that draft, I don't know, and their rookie value. And this is not necessarily looking at dynasty value. There will be a bit of that. We're going to do more dynasty stuff moving forward when we do team reviews and stuff like that. But it's just going back and looking at the draft class and showing a similarity between certain seasons, each sort of year when we look at this and the way things play out and the general patterns that emerge. Often those patterns emerge which are completely counter to a narrative or a media idea that is created and pushed on you. Shout out to the rookie wall. We'll talk about all of that sort of stuff as we get in. It is Love Your Thighs Day. So, love your thighs, I'll love your thighs, I'll love my thighs. Let's get our thighs cracking. We love our thighs. Let's talk about the results, just the general overall results. Now, of course, there's always nuance when we talk categories and head-to-heads and points leagues about when do we use a guy. We use him here and then he's not good enough and then he's good enough later. And we're going to talk about all that stuff. But what you can see there is that the value of these rookie players. This season, I projected 0 rookies to be top 120 in categories or points leagues. We ended up with 0 category league players. No top 120 category league players. We did get 2 points leagues top 120 guys. So I think I had 2 guys between 120 and 140 in the projections, and until those guys jumped into the top 120. So W's. In previous years, 23-24, the Wembanyama year, we had 3 top 120 categories and 3 top 120 points guys. The year before, it was 2 and 4. The year before, it was 6 and 6. That was the Cade, Mobley, Barnes year, right? So you can see the normal number is between 3 to 5 top 120 players for rookies in categories and points leagues, and we got 2 combined. 2 points guys, no category league guys. It was bad. We predicted it would be bad, and it was bad. In terms of drafts, what I was very proud of as a fantasy community, and often people go just crazy high on this, and I don't want to include ESPN's rankings because they had like insane things like a top 100 pick on Reed Shepherd, which of course wasn't a normal thing. But in terms of when we're looking at the ADP of rookies, we only had one guy that was a top 100. He was only one top 120 ADP rookie. When he was a top 100 guy, it was Zach Edey. That's all we had. So people were just like, yeah, they're bad. We had 6 players that were picked on average between 121 and 140, and some of those were barely picked in any leagues. It was small percentages. And we had 6 other rookies who had an ADP outside the top 140, and again, these are very small percentages of leagues a lot of these guys were drafted. So overall, there were 13 rookies who had ADPs, and I'm not including Bronny James in this because he had an ADP of 137 as people took it as a joke, which is whatever, that's okay. But 13 guys were picked and only 1 inside the top 120, which again is just not how it normally looks. It's not the way that people normally approach a rookie class. Last year, for example, we had 3 rookies in the top 120, and then 3 in between 121 and 140, and then 140. 10 picks outside the top 140. So we just had a different sort of setup for this season, which again is good. We made sense of it. What I do like to do on these rookie review shows is because we're talking segments. Because it's not just about the whole season. Because we get guys in, we get guys out, values change, and we know how that works. So what I did is broke the season down to 5 separate segments. October and November, because October's 10 days or whatever it is. December, January, February, even though it's a little bit smaller because of the All-Star break, and then March and April together, which is a full month of March, and then those 2 weeks of garbage time in April. So combine those together as one segment. So let's have a look at how it played out. And this is, again, I think, really useful stuff. Again, this draft class is different to last year's draft class. It's going to be different to the upcoming draft class. When we're talking about the segments, for example, last season, in the first segment of the year between October and November, we had 3 top 120 rookies. This season, we had 0. We did have 4 streamers, and I count a streamer as someone who was ranked between 120 and 175. Now, these, when I talk ranking numbers, it's category numbers. Points, it's very similar for points leagues, but just a general vibe of it. So we had 4 guys who were considered streamable between 120 and 175 in that first segment. So you're talking about guys like Sarr, Edey, Jared McCain, and Bub Carrington, who were streamable players for category leagues in that first part of the year. In December, we did have 2 guys crack inside the top 120, and we had only 1 player who was considered a streamer. The 2 top 120 guys were Edey and Sarr. Okay. The streamer guy was actually Yves Misi, and a lot of other guys took big steps back in December for the rookies. If we look at January, again, there was 1 top 120 player in January. It was Kel'el Ware, Superman. We had 4 streamer level players: Clingan, Sarr, Collier, and Jalen Wells was a streamer level player in January. In February, guess what? There was 1 top 120 player, and that guy was Keyshawn George. But we had 7 streamers as we start to head towards silly season. Sarr, Ware, Edey, Castle, Carrington, Collier, Buzelis. A lot of names starting to jump up there. And then in the last segment of the year, which is when rookies really do start to either improve or just get more opportunity because of tanking and end of season, this is when the rookies really do start to not take over but become more important. We had, in the March-April segment of the season, 6 top 120 producers from a category perspective, or just from rookies' perspective at that time of year, which, obviously is a lot. It's exactly the same number that we had last season, which is interesting. Last season, we had 7 stream guys in March, April. This year, we had 10 streamers. So who were the guys that were the top 120 players? We had Sarr, we had Ware, we had Filipowski, we had Castle, we had Adembona, and we had Jacoby Walter, plus 10 additional streamers. So obviously, that was the time of the year when we were able to get more value out of our rookies. I'm going to come back and look more at the class overall before we start to get into some individual players. Today's episode, though, it is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Well, you can just turn any TV you've got into a gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. You don't need your console. All you need is your paired controller. You subscribe or you sign into the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which has got EA Play included, so you can play games like EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, other games, whatever other game you're looking at, you can do it through your Fire TV. That's for entertainment as well as the popular streaming services, as well as games. So any TV, you're traveling, you just bring your Fire TV stick, in it goes, and off you go, ready to go. You can get in there and play those games. You can take the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers online in EA College Football 25 and maybe take some glory. I don't know. You're playing online. You're playing your dynasty setups there. You could do all of that. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox, Game Pass, Ultimate subscription, and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Okay, so now we can get in and have a little bit of a look at the draft capital that was outlaid in terms of not necessarily the we outlaid, but the NBA teams outlaid. And why this is important is just to sort of know where the value of fantasy rookies can come from. So we had 18 rookies over the entirety of the season that had top 175 months. Now I say months, but I mean segments because, October, November, 1 month, April, March, 1 month. Well, that's how I'm counting it. So 18 individual rookies had seasons where they had at least 1 month inside the top 175. Interestingly, maybe you won't find it interesting. I did though. Last season, we only had 16 rookies. That goes to show, I think, a little bit more of the variability in this year's class of like guys stepping up and going down. You might take it to say what this class is a little bit deeper in rotation players, and I understand that way of looking at it. But of the 18 rookies that had top 175 months, only 7 of those were lottery picks. So, 7 of the 14 lottery picks were able to have a top 175 month, which honestly, it's not a big ask. So guys, obviously Nikola Topic didn't do it, but there were lottery players like Tijan Salin who weren't involved anywhere. Like they weren't ever having any sort of moment where they were a top 170 guy. You had rugged Ronnie Holland as a top 5 pick who wasn't getting into that area. Rob Dillingham, who we knew would have very little opportunity in Minnesota, another lottery pick that just wasn't able to get the playing time that he would need to produce those numbers. You had Devin Carter, who was injured to begin the season. You had Cody Williams, who was Cody Williams for the whole season, and he wasn't able to contribute. So we had 7 lottery picks. Of the 18 rookies, 13 of them were first-round draft picks. 4 of them were second-round draft picks, including Jalen Wells and Adem Bona, who had moments, and obviously we know some of the bonus stuff that happened towards the end of the year. We had one player who was undrafted, and that was Keon Brooks Jr., who was a rookie who was able to have some value at times for the Pelicans later in the season. But that's how all of that broke down in terms of when we're focusing on rookies, obviously we're looking more towards the lottery with 7 lottery picks and then 6 other first rounders. But that's not a big difference. Last season we had 9 lottery picks and 12 first rounders. So it was very heavily involved in the lottery, again showing the flatness of this draft. And last season we had the similar 3 second rounders and 1 undrafted, and we had 4 second rounders and 1 undrafted this season. So very similar stuff. Of the 18 rookies that had top 175 months, and this is where we talk about the rookie wall. Now, I think majority of you know that the rookie wall is not a real thing as a overall narrative, because it's people, and this is something I'm continuing to learn and understand, is people just often want reasons. They can make up the reason, but they want a reason for something. Hey man, why is this guy struggling? Rookie wall. Okay. Why is this guy getting better? Oh, well, he's actually just more experienced now, so it's the reverse rookie wall. My pushback against these narratives is that they are not all-encompassing. Is that they're not a thing that you can just say, this is going to happen. It's like a sophomore slump. Yeah, but majority of players improve. So what is it? Is it a real thing, or is it just something we assign to 1 or 2 players in a certain spot? And people love talking about the rookie wall. Oh, they've hit the rookie wall, no wonder they're struggling. Yeah, except that of the 18 rookies who had top 175 months, as the season went on, their minutes rose. And of the 18 rookies who had top 175 individual months / segments, 14 of those got better as the season went on. 4 of them got worse, and even some of them marginally worse. But 14 of 18 got better. The general rule, and this is the same thing, and I always like to do it because it's good to continue to get data. But the book is written on this. This is settled. This is done. Rookies get better. You could easily make an argument, especially for a draft class like this one, that you just shouldn't have drafted a single rookie, and then you start to hit them up around January, February, and we get a little bit, February, March, April, get a couple of guys in there because we know their minutes are going to rise. We know their production's going to get better, and you're going to be pointless to hold on to most of these guys early in the season. And that has played out that way again. Now, it is going to be different next season. Cooper Flag. We'll see what happens with Bailey and Harper and guys like that, but Flag's the obvious one. And then in previous or future seasons, when Boozer and DeBancer and those sort of guys come in, we're going to be like, yeah, we will draft them. But this is a very common thing, is that we see huge numbers jump up towards the end of the season and get better. Like last season, of the 16 rookies, 12 got better. 75%. 13 had their minutes rise, over 75%. And we're at a higher number again this year, because that is just the way it goes. We had 47 rookies this season that played 25 or more games. That's way up on what we had last season from memory. Oh, sorry. No, it's not. My bad. It is actually way down on what we had last season. We had 47 rookies playing 25 plus games. Last season, we had 67. Big difference. So again, if you want that idea of, hey, this is a super deep draft class, much deeper, not necessarily. We didn't get as much production from rookies. But what is interesting, of those 47 rookies, 31 of them improved their production as the season went on, and 40 of them saw their minutes increase. In line with last season, where it was 40 of 67 and 43 of 67. This is what happens. We continue to do it, and we can rush through it because we know this. Consistency is also a problem for rookies. That is, again, a very common thing. I broke the season down into segments. And to me, a usable player in a segment is somebody who sits in that top 175 zone, because they're either on your roster or you're going to be... Because if someone's top 175 in a 12-man league, you're going to be using them, because you're going to have moments where they're streamed in, where the schedule makes sense. You're going to have moments where you've got 2 or 3 guys on the injured slot, so your 13-man roster becomes a 15-man roster, and that brings you up to about 180 players rostered overall in the league. So last season, we had 2 rookies who were usable in all 5 segments. This season, we had 1. We had 1 rookie who was usable in all 5 segments this season using my top 175 cutoff. Do you know who that was? Say it. You can say it. It's not him. I wonder who you said. I know who you said. It was Alex Sarr. He was the only player who hit my top 175 threshold in all 5 segments. He was the only one. We had 1 player who hit 4 segments. 1 player who hit 4 segments of usability. And that was Zach Edey. He had a moment in the January portion where he was terrible, but he was usable in 4 segments. We had 3 rookies who were usable in 3 segments. Okay? 3 rookies who were usable in 3 segments through the year. Again, so that's 60% of the time. Ware, Carrington, and Collier. We had 4 rookies who were usable in 2 segments. Clingan, George, and for category leagues, Castle, although for points leagues, different story, and Buzelis. And then we had 10 rookies who had individual months where they were usable once. Compare that to last year. This is where one of the big differences comes in. There's only 4 rookies last season who had a 1-month little run. We had 10. So lots of like, hey, and then, and then, hey, and then, Like a lot more randomness in the rookie production versus you've established yourself as being good, or it took longer for guys to find themselves in larger roles this season than it has in past years because the quality of players just isn't as good. I'm going to come back and talk about some of the individual guys, starting with the 2 guys who probably made the most impact in your league, Alex Sarr and Stephon Castle. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by the Game Time app, and the NBA playoffs are on. Every game in the playoffs can be exciting. There's electricity. Every bucket, every movement, every block, every player introduction, for God's sake, is exciting, and being in the building is awesome. And that's where Game Time comes in. You can be a part of it without that stress that normally comes with last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. The prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals, they can save you up to 60%. But it doesn't just have to be for the NBA playoffs. It could be the NHL playoffs. It could be for Major League Baseball. It could be for non-sporting things. As if though. But it could be theater, musicals, art, maybe, probably not. Maybe comedy, who knows? Lots of different things. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so we can come in now and just take a look at those different areas, your top 120 guys, your streamy guys, your guys that flash a little bit. And we're going to come in now and just talk about, again, those top 120 players. Pretty obvious who they are. It is Alex Sarr and it is Steph Castle. But like I mentioned, nobody was a top 120 guy for category leagues. These were top 120 players for the season in points leagues. So nobody was a category league guy for the entirety of the season in that number. Castle barely made it, 119th in points leagues. Sarr was 105th during that time, or for points leagues. He averaged 29 fantasy points a game, Alex Sarr. And I still believe, and I had him firmly as the number one rookie in this class, from a real life perspective. I had him firmly as the number one dynasty player in this class. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed with my evaluation of Sarr. He had some of the worst field goal percentage you will ever see. As a big man, 39%. Horrific. 68 from the line, terrible. 31 from three, pretty bad. All that is useless. But he did hit almost 2 threes. He did block 1.5 shots. He did get 7 rebounds. And he was able to play 27 minutes. I would not be surprised if we get 31 minutes a game from Sarr next season. We get to 45% shooting with 2 blocks, 8 rebounds, 18 points. And that's a top 75 guy. Wouldn't be shocked at that at all. Even though, again, there are plenty of things that can be picked on with his game and the shooting is horrendous, and I do really worry about that. He, to me, feels like you can be a starter for a period of time. Long term, I actually don't know. But good fantasy numbers, solid fantasy numbers from Alex Sarr, and he improved as the season went on. Castle's going to be one of the guys that, again, you are going to disagree with me on. I did not like Steph Castle in the draft. I believe I had him 6th or 7th pre-draft, right? In terms of real-life production. I didn't like the Spurs picking him at 4. I don't really know what he is. Is he a point guard? Almost. I would say no. I didn't think he was a point guard in college. I didn't think he was a point guard in the draft. The Spurs drafted him and then signed Chris Paul and then traded for De'Aaron Fox, so they're not playing him as a point guard. He's inefficient, and I think his defense is good, but I don't think it's great. I think it's solid. And I still don't believe that he is the star that some people think he might become. I don't buy him at all. There is so many insane, or what about, like, he's got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comparisons. He's not, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He's not like that as a player at all. He did improve as the season went on. And this is where context and nuance comes in. He was 119th in points leagues, averaging almost 27 points. He averaged 15, 4, and 4 for the season with 0.9 steals. He played 27 minutes a game. He shot 43 and 72 on 29% from 3. All bad numbers, but, equivalent to what Alex Sarr did. His category league Durant ranking was 204th. Horrendous. Look, that's bad, like really bad. But he did have a few moments towards the end of the season when things started to get better for him. Why did they get better? In March, April, where he cracked inside the top 100? Well, Wemby was out and Fox was out, so he just got like 30 usage. He had the ball in his hands, and they are not real things. He is not going to be tasked with that role moving forward. He will not be the number one usage player who is orchestrating the offense. It'll just never happen. And they could honestly, they've got a lottery pick, 2 lottery picks in this draft. Imagine they get 2 top 5s. Because 2 top 5s in this draft would, to me, put Castle down at like the 5th most important player in this team. Wemby, Fox, these 2 picks, and then him. So if I had Castle, and I don't in any dynasty league, and the reason I don't have him is because I'm just out on him as especially a category league player, there are some real potential sell high type stuff here, I think. Like, the numbers aren't bad. Like, they're fine, but it is context related. He was pumped full of usage. It made the team way worse that he got that. Will it make him better in the future? Maybe. But also, on a team that is real, he will never be given that opportunity to do it. There's always going to be outlier skill developments, I'm not really sure if he actually developed any of those skills this season. And do I sound like I'm a hater? Yeah, I'm sure I do. It's just that I don't believe in Steph Castle as a star-level player like others do. I would not want to go in and go, he is my 2. He is my shooting guard. Okay? Is he big enough to play the 3? Sort of. But also, yeah, like maybe. And fantasy stuff is just, it's bad for him at this point. It's not good. But we saw flashes, and the points league stuff was good, but it required a lot of different things to get us there. Let's take a look at the next bunch of guys who were all sort of around that streaming zone. So they were must roster at times, and there were other times when they weren't. So we're talking about guys who were between 120 and 175 for the season. Kel'el Ware, Donovan Clingan, Zach Edey, Yves Missi, and Isaiah Collier. You'll notice one thing in common with 4 of those guys. They're all centers. Ware, Clingan, Edey, Missi. The other one is Collier, who got really value through his assists. And they all had their little moments. The one guy out of that group, and Edey, I still don't really buy into, but I think Ware can actually be a legitimate, not quite a star, but a very, very good starter. Edey, I think, is going to be much better from a fantasy perspective next season. Collier, I was impressed, but also, who knows? Missi, not that impressed. He was like, whatever. Clingan, some okay defensive stuff, but still like very raw and a lot to work on that I don't ever think he'll get to a solid enough level. But these are the guys that were in that 121 to 175 type of an area who produced and were names that we talked about from a fantasy point of view. Like I said, I think Ware is probably the most interesting one. I believe, let me double check this. I believe that Ware may have had the single best individual season from a rookie, or individual month/segment from a rookie, from a category perspective, and the verdict is in. It is correct. He was the 84th ranked player for category leagues in January. The closest to that was Kyle Filipowski's 85th ranking in the March and April segment of the season. So that January Kel'el Ware Superman run was the best individual segment for a rookie all season for category leagues. We had a couple of other top 100 runs with Sarr in March, April, Castle in March, April, Adembona in March, April, and Filipowski, like I just said. But Ware had that best run. What did he play? Just 22 minutes a night for the year. He was 152nd in Durant. He was 156th in points leagues, and that's in 22 minutes. Now, Spo was very sort of up and down with his minutes and his playing time. If you pushed him to 30 minutes a night, I'm still not really sure how the Ware and Bam matchup or combination works long term, but this is a top 60, top 50 upside player, I would say, in the next 4 years. Well, I think he gets there. He shot 32% from 3. That can go up. He averages 9 and 7 with a block a game. The passing's never really going to be there, but he was good field goals. I think he can become a double-double threat with 1.5 to 2 blocks who hits 1.5 threes. Like, let's talk about him from a better rebounding, worse shooting Brook Lopez. Yeah, I think that's a fairer way to look at him. So I was impressed with what he was able to do. I'll bring up some of these other guys just to take a quick look at them, like Donovan Clingan, who was the third string center in Portland all season until we had Rob Williams and DeAndre Ayton go down. He was only 172nd for the season in 20 minutes a night, but it is only 20 minutes a night. But his value comes from one thing, and one thing only. Oh, that's not true. 2 things. Rebounds and blocks. 1.6 blocks in 20 minutes is good. 8 rebounds in 20 minutes is good. And you would imagine that his 54% shooting, given the shots that he takes, although he did start to take some threes, that will go up. I don't think that he's a guy that's got the motor to be a 30-minute-a-night player consistently. I don't think he's anywhere good enough offensively to demand those sort of minutes. And I'm not sure he ever gets there. But we saw some flashes. Now, you would be aware that, when we started to get league winnery on Donovan Clingan and he had the starting job and Aiden went down, he was fine. He didn't impress. I would say he was fine. Like, he was 141st in March and April. That's not that good. Like, he was fine. And I think that's probably the kindest way of talking about him. He's the interesting one because I don't really buy into a very good team playing Zach Edey 30 minutes a night because of there are so many concerns to me with him defensively. But he had many solid runs. He was very good or much better down the stretch once Taylor Jenkins got fired. Now, that doesn't reflect in the March-April segment because Jenkins was there most of that. And he was 147th still. But I do think that he will be a real shot to be a top 100 guy next season. Edey, he averaged 9 and 8 in his 21 minutes, and I am certain that will go up. But he's still one of those guys that I have real significant concerns about. Hey, like, if you look at him and go, look, we've got our center position sorted, I'll be like, yeah, I don't think you have. I think he can be useful in certain spots and certain matchups, but there are going to be plenty of times where it just does not work. Now, he could continue to improve and prove all that wrong, but interestingly, he actually regressed as the season went on, and there's some correlation formulas that I use to show that. And I know that like the last 2 weeks of the season, he was very good, but he was better at the start of the year, and then got worse and worse and worse and worse, and then a nice little spike at the end. But it wasn't enough to if you're looking at like trend lines, it went down for Edey as the season went on. So that's useful to know, I think. Yves Missi, also another one of those players who went down as the season went on. He was given the starting job immediately. I was very concerned with his fit with Zion Williamson, and I still am. Not that that's necessarily they're both going to be there. He, even in times towards the end of the year when Zion was out, I wouldn't have said that he stepped up. I thought he was like just very sort of mid all the way through. He was 201st for the season. He played 27 minutes a night, which is the same minutes as Castle and Sarr. He averaged 9 and 8 with 1.3 blocks with 54% shooting. And the best case scenario for him is he is a positive or an above average rebounds guy, an above average blocks guy, and above average field goal percentage guy. And even then, not by much. So while he was solid and for where they got him in the draft, that's really good value. I can't see him ever being a guy that really blows us away from a fantasy perspective. I can't really see it. Again, I look at the Pelicans and I don't think they should go, yep, we're actually done. Our center spot's locked down. I think they would be looking to upgrade that any way they could. I don't think that it works with him there. I don't think that he is the guy that you want to build yourself around, but as a backup center, sure. Why not? As a 22-minute-a-night starter, if you got better options, no problem. But overall, his numbers did regress as the season went on. Isaiah Collier is the other one who I never for a million years thought that he'd be a starter this season. I liked him in the draft process. I had him as a lottery pick, and then he went to the last pick of the first round. I liked Utah grabbing him there. I never thought in a million years he would overtake Keontae George as the starting point guard. But he did. And he was literally one of the worst players you have ever seen for the first 2 months of the season. Like, horrendous. For category leagues, he was outside the top 300 in October, November. Now, he had some really nice runs, but we know what it is. It was assists, 6.3 assists. He didn't score that well. He shot poorly from the field, and from the line, and from three. That's the triple whammy. His points league numbers weren't that good. He was an assists guy. And there was a stage where I was like, I'm going to grab him, and I'm going to see where it goes. But I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. I am dropping him. And is this team set with him as their starting point guard? Absolutely not. They would not be set with basically anything on this team with how they want to view it in the future. So while he had some impressive moments, we were basing that off of baseline where this guy was useless, and then he stepped up to be better. Which, there is value in that. There's no question there is value in that. I want to get through now and just talk about a couple of guys who showed some flashes at times, and you'll note there are some names that we just haven't mentioned yet. So I'll mention a few of them here. Jonathan Mobo, Keyshawn George, Jared McCain, Bub Carrington, Kyle Filipowski, Zach Ricochet are on this list, and then I've got 4 more guys I'll talk about in a sec on the next slide. I think it is worth looking at some of these guys. I've got Mobo on this list because his last segment of the year was very good. It was very good. And he had a couple of flashes earlier in the season. I think he's an interesting player, one of those guys who might be a short-term oddity. But again, is he any level of future starter? I don't think so. I don't think that he's that sort of guy. Again, he had a really good little run where he was a top 130 guy in March and April for category leagues, but I don't really think that is that important. Keyshawn George is more interesting. Now, he is a guy that his numbers in the NBA were just so different from what he did in college that it was honestly amazing. He came in and he only ended up 190th in category leagues and 194th in points leagues. He played 27 minutes a night. He averaged 9 points. He shot 32% from three. He shot 37% from the field. What he was able to do is have these random games where he'd have, well, here's 3 steals and here's 3 blocks and here's 6 threes. And his numbers improved as the season went on. And in February, he was a top 110 player, a guy that you wanted to roster. And that was, they moved on from Kyle Kuzma and he had this opportunity. And then there was some back and forward with his minutes and the Wizards tank ramping up and then an injury, and that sort of brought him back down. Would you feel great about Keyshawn George? I think you should feel pretty good about him as a Wizards fan or as a fantasy dynasty manager, but will he ever get to be as good as, like, let's say, Cam Johnson? Will he ever get to be as good as like another sort of defensive forward who's a low usage player? Like, I don't think so. There was enough there to be useful for us at plenty of times during the season, but obviously just consistently like not there. This is the next one's the one that is the most interesting to me, and that is Jared McCain. Because McCain was not really a factor early on. Then we saw him start to get minutes. He went on one of the more insane hot streaks you've seen. He moved into the starting lineup next to Tyrese Maxey. A lot of his early stuff happened when a lot of players were out, including Maxey with a hamstring, I believe, and then they played together, and we saw his numbers predictably decline. So when I got it on the screen and it says regressor, and you'll go, what are you talking about, regressor? He was a regressor because he had his October, November period of the year was 166th, and then in December, which is when he got injured, it had actually dropped down to 195th because some of the shooting cooled, and then the other players returned. He came in and had that little run where he played like 37 minutes a night with 35 usage on insane shooting and ran everything. And then guys returned and he fell back down. And there is an assumption that Jared McCain would have run away with Rookie of the Year. And actually, it's probably true. He probably would have. But he has the advantage, Jared McCain does, of us not seeing what happened for January, February, March. Now, March and April, he would have gone crazy because everyone was out, but maybe they wouldn't have been as bad if he had been healthy. So he's an interesting player. He averaged 26 minutes a night, 15 points, which is fine. 46% and 38 from the field and from three is good, and he was great from the line. But it is worth noting, he averaged 2.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 0.7 steals. That's not good. Yes, and 26 minutes, if you're a starter under Nick Nurse, he'll play 34. That'll go up. And one of the big things that improves from rookies is their percentages improve. Hey, his percentages are fine. So what changes next season? Will he maintain 24 usage if George, Embiid, and Maxey are there? I don't know. I like him. I think that a Maxey McCain backcourt is incredibly untenable. They're too small. They cannot defend together. And McCain needs to be a guy that gets a lot of shots and they need to go in because he's not a great passer. And then how does he get them? So while, again, am I hating? Yeah, sure, whatever. You can say that. I just think that there were a lot of contextual things about that little run that we all have burnt into our brain about how good he was. When there was just a bunch of guys out, they came back, he dropped off, and then we never got to see what would happen as we move forward. We just don't know. And that works in his favor. Bob Carrington's a player that I had as a top 10 player in this draft class, and he played minutes and he got opportunities, but he also was in a situation where like his production was not very good. Only 16 usage despite 30 minutes a game. 10, 4, and 4 with 0.7 steals is pretty rough. The percentages are not super strong. 40 and, well, that's where the 81 from the line is good. Even opportunities towards the end of the year when guys are out, he didn't always ramp up. Now, he did get better. He did improve as the season went on, but like his best segments of the year were 145th in February and 150th in March and April. It's not that good. It's just not that good. And he was getting starting and then benched for Brogdon, and I just don't know what this team is still. Jordan Poole is still there, Carrington is there, and George is there, and Sarr is there, and then a top 6 draft pick is coming. Plus whatever else they decide to do. So I do like Carrington, and I do think there is going to be big, unlike McCain, big efficiency improvements. I think he can be not quite a triple-double threat, but he can be a good rebounder and a good assist guy, and he showed a little bit of that. Steals, he was a pretty bad steals guy in college too, from memory, and that translated to the NBA. So while I do like Bub, I wouldn't say that his year was superlative. It was enough. Let's talk now about the number 1 overall pick, Zach Rusachet, because he started all season, and I would say it was, there were times where he did improve as the season went on, and he did get better, but overall it was just bad. Usually if you're a starter, you're going to get close to having fantasy value. He played 25 minutes a night with a category ranking of 237th. He averaged 12 points with under 4 rebounds and under 1.5 assists. Oh yeah, and also 0.7 steals in 25 minutes as a starter. Now the shooting at 36% and 46 from the field is fine, and that will improve. 71 from the line, you'd hope that gets better. But overall, I thought, and I know that it was a bad class and he shouldn't have gone number 1, in my opinion. It wasn't like, was it encouraging that he wasn't a complete disaster? Sure. Was he still bad? Yeah. And if we're going to use the, should you lock in on this guy as your future? No, you absolutely should not. My worry for him from a fantasy perspective is part of why we did not rate him from a fantasy perspective or a dynasty perspective, is that what does he do? And we saw it again, like there are no rebounds or assists or steals. The blocks are okay. And he was able to burn stuff into your memory by having these random, like here's a 30-point game on 80% shooting. But look at everything else. It's bad, man. Like it's not good. Rookies will improve. Second-year guys, in their second year, they do improve. But overall, we were right to not consider him anything more than a late-round flyer. I'm not going to go into detail on Kyle Filipowski here, second-round player from the Jazz, who had some good moments. But again, this is a guy that's an interesting player who I thought should have been a first-round pick, but wasn't. What I do want to talk about are these last 4 names. I want to talk about Matas Buzelis, Jalen Wells, Jacoby Walter, and Adem Bona. And I'll talk about Wells, Walter, and Bona here. Wells started all year. Absolutely no fantasy game whatsoever. Well, will that be able to improve as the years go on? Like, maybe. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm super enthralled by it. And now he's obviously got this injury that's keeping him out all season. He'll be back next season, no problem. But again, is he a solid enough role player? No problem. Is it ever going to... Could his best case scenario be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? No. Like, I don't even know he can get that good. And that's not a high bar. Jacoby Walter had some flashes, but who was playing? Nobody. He showed more passing than I thought, but still absolutely not convinced. And the last one is Adem Bona, who was very good. But it did require Andre Drummond being out, and he's done. Embiid being out, and he's also done. But George and Maxey and all that sort of stuff. Now, there is a shot that Adem Bona is the backup center in Philly behind Embiid, which might mean he starts 60 games next season. It might. And even then, that's a great fantasy opportunity. But, like, what's his best case? A interim starter? He was useful, and we picked him up, and we used him. But I don't think that there's any sort of star or future starter that you lock into. The one that I'm more interested in is Buzelis, who, when immediately after the draft last season, I said, who is the player that might have an opportunity to immediately impact fantasy? And I said, I think it might be him. Because if I was the Bulls, I wouldn't prioritize bringing back Patrick Williams, but I thought, I should have thought, it's the Bulls. Of course they'll do it. And they did. So Buzelis never really got to do anything until the second half of the season. And he did show improvements. We saw his February and March being useful and usable in fantasy leagues. He played only 19 minutes a game, Matas Buzelis, for the season. And that's too low. Matas Buzelis needs to have played more than that. And I'm very certain that he is going to play more next season. Like 284th in Durant is not very good. 20 usage is not bad. But in 19 minutes, he blocked 0.9 shots. He shot 36 from 3 and 81 from the line. He hit 1 3 with 9 points and 3 rebounds. That's 19 minutes. I if we look at the second, his last 2 months where he averaged, or his last 12 games, he averaged 29 minutes, 14 and 6 with 2 threes, 1.4 blocks, shot 50% from the field, where's his 3-point percentage? 48% from 3. That's going to come down. On 20 usage, this basically, 18 usage, so about the same number. Just if this man gets 32 minutes a night next season, and the Bulls aren't really likely to get a high pick, and he should absolutely lock in as the starting 4 next season without any question, he will be close to top 100, or should be top 100. So if we want to, if there's positivities out of this draft class, I think Sarr is going to be solid. I think Ware is going to be solid. I think Buzelis is going to be solid. I think McCain and Castle might be overrated, but they could be okay. I'm not sure about Ricochet. I don't know. Topic will be the other interesting one, but his spot on that team is impossible to figure out. And there's just a bunch of nothingness through a lot of these other guys. And that was reviewing the rookies, but that's sort of just how we thought it would be. And when we do draft stuff this season, there's going to be a very different tenor around the draft class because they're going to be players who are good. And good is a term that's very basic, but it's important because these guys generally aren't good. They're fine. There'll be rotation guys. There'll be some guys that start. But overall, the talent level, I would say at times even lived down to what we want, what we thought, maybe even worse. And I know many of you will say the opposite and think it was way better. It just wasn't, in my opinion. I'd love for you to show any arguments or evidence for that. But to me, they were just players were worse. McCain's the wild card here. And there could be development in a bunch of different guys. But overall, if you faded this class, you were spot on. Love your thighs. Love the next draft class. Love yourself. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Maybe if I push the right button, it would work. Let's do the see ya now.